Now to introduce today's speaker, Heidi and Daryl. Heidi, I'm just passing the screen to you if you can accept the invitation to present. All right. Now, Heidi and Daryl, who's off screen, I'm not sure if he'll feature today, are both researchers at Scion working on the Te Rātā Whakamaru Jobs for Nature project. Te Rātā Whakamaru is a Scion-led project funded by the Department of Conservation, which is being delivered in partnership with the Rotoiti 15 Trust. As part of their presentation today, Heidi and Daryl hope to share a video. We have now discovered that the technical complications of loading this video are too much for the platform to manage, but they'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. So we may have to share that video with you later. But I'll hand over to you anyway, Heidi, and feel free to get underway.
Kia ora koutou. Nau mai, Heidi mai ki te kōrero I tēnei ata. Welcome today to this talk. As Jenny said, we're probably a little bit more technically challenged than we hoped, so we'll see how we go. No ahe te reria ahau, ko Heidi Dungey ahau, he waiwai kai pakiaka, hoe urirangi o tēnei kaupapa. So I help really steer the waka a little bit, and really it's the team doing all the mahi, so full acknowledgement to them. And also I'd like to acknowledge DOC as they're the main funders of this project. It's a Jobs for Nature project. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge Rowan Sutherland and Jules Freeman, who helped us secure the funding for the project. So I'm just firstly going to give you an introduction to the project itself and how lucky we are to have it. Really, we have the structure of having a project advisory board that's where our funders and our mana whenua can come and see the project progress, and we give regular updates. Then we have the project team, which of course is comprised of Scion and our partners Rotoiti 15 Trust. And then our main mahi is looking at the surveillance of all Myrtaceae species within the region, and then looking at the development of a breeding program, hopefully finding resistance. So basically it's quite set up so that we're constantly training folks as they come in and out of the project. We're also working very hard on the surveillance, setting up the transects in the forest, and then also seed collection, taking some cuttings, and we actually found that we had to take a lot more cuttings because the seed was no longer available. So essentially some of them are already functionally extinct in the forest. So we're also been co-developing a breeding program and have just started to line out our first families into a structured population so that we can see if there is any resistance. So an introduction to the team. So we're very lucky to work closely with Rotoiti 15, who employ the team themselves, and at the moment we have quite a number of people and in a definite structure. We're really lucky enough to have a te hapū, is that spelt right? Sorry. And then 2 manukura who are supervisors of hōmiromiro. And we were gifted the name not only of the project, but of these roles in the project and describing what each of us do. So our key species at the moment are some of the most at risk, and they of course are Āwhitu, Ramarama and Āwhitu, and also looking more closely at Māori Taiwaki and Pohitakawa. Our key focus areas in terms of the science and the actual mahi in the project, we're looking at these list of things, mapping of what's there in the forest and monitoring, some surveillance of some transects that we've set up permanently, and working out how to conserve in an appropriate way the genetics of what we have collected from the forest, and how to perhaps repatriate that. And finally, designing a breeding program of sorts, which it's small steps in the beginning, but we're really making some cool progress. And then perhaps a discussion of whether or not it's appropriate to establish a seed orchard for future populations. So that's kind of the basic structure of the project. Now we kind of had hoped to look at showing you a video, and it has all these really amazing kōrero from our team. So we will make this available to you after this seminar, but actually what I might try and do is show you the video anyway, and then we can just, Daryl and I can probably just speak to it as we go through. So let's hope that works. We'll see how we go. We'll just move that hopefully over. I'll have to get out of presenter mode. Right. So I think perhaps you can't. Can you hear that? No. So what we're doing is mostly around the lake, and the final video actually has our hōmiromiro and our manukura talking about their work. So the training around how to go into the ngahere, what sort of things that they've experienced, looking at actually identifying what a myrtle is and where they are in their forests, and how they've propagated some of them in the nursery and kept the identity of exactly all the trees, and watching them grow. And these are the foundations for the breeding trial. And the mahi here has been done all by the team. And I think you'll see that the actual hands-on of this has led to some really exciting steps forward. And those trees that you can see of Ramarama there, that's our first little breeding trial that we've put together. So many of the manukura and hōmiromiro have come to this team looking for a new direction, and just trying to learn something new about the ngahere in their actual area where they live. And this has drawn a lot of people to the project. And while many of them, I think, weren't so sure about it at the beginning, I think they really enjoyed learning. In particular, Ōtaki has become really competent at propagation, and has revealed a passion for that. And one of the most important things is how we've structured the project in terms of a partnership with Rotoiti 15. Is actually the team are employed by Rotoiti 15, which allows them to be Māori and not necessarily be in the working environment of a Crown Institute, and that's worked really well. And one of the things that they've really learned, and Topa here in particular, is how he reflects on his previous work and how he actually can see looking after it in a new light, similar to looking after the health of humans, really, and how we can perhaps think about the practices that we might need to put in place in the ngahere to make sure that we can ensure that the species are there for the future generations. And some of it's taken for granted, and we actually perhaps need to take a closer look. And one of the things that growing up you take it for granted, but perhaps it's time now to take a closer look, and not only just this team, but it's spreading through to the other whānau. And particularly, I think it's been exciting to learn about the ngāhere for the team and keep that connection strong. And I apologise in advance to the team if I say anything wrong. So it's challenging the thinking, and what we've been doing is one of the trainings that we've been doing is learning how to go into the forest and set up a transect, learning how to use a GPS, learning how to use the app that we've produced in order to assess the myrtles when they're going to the transects, which they will actually go in the forest and regularly assess about at least every month, and in the summer season at least every 2 weeks. So this will give us a really good indication how the disease is progressing across the sites that we have been visiting. And so one of the biggest learnings is how to do this, and how to take the measurements, how to use the GPS, and how to translate that into something meaningful. And once we finish this season, we're actually going to be writing the results up. So another opportunity is going into the ngāhere. They've expanded their knowledge for not only the plants in the Myrtaceae genus, but what's happening around, and a more holistic view of the forests and the health of the forests. This is Jackie Bond. She's the project technical lead, and she's been helping to train the team and set up the transects. And she's explaining that we roughly knew the locations of many of the Myrtaceae, particularly in the local area around the lakes where we started. But it's the power of the team that's enabled us to discover a larger number of trees than we thought possible. So originally, Jackie was thinking there were maybe 20 plants around one of the locations, and the team have been able to identify, I think it was around 1,000. And so this has brought some really important information as to the fragility of the population. And it's really, really great and encouraging to see that there were more plants than we had anticipated. So the team found it really cool to go and find all these trees. It was hard to map them all, and a little bit more physical than they had anticipated. But actually, it was really rewarding to have it mapped and understand how the health of the population was going in those forests. They find the species and they enter data such as height and health and the presence of myrtle rust. Within each area, this happens regularly. And John's just saying that basically they do the transects once a month in winter, and then when the myrtle rust ramps up over summer, they will go back regularly every 2 weeks, as I explained previously. And Polder is explaining how they will go and look at the percentage of the new growth and how healthy the plants are and the types of different scales that they use for the assessments. And now that just a section talking about knowledge sharing. And one of the biggest outcomes, I think, has been our opportunities as a team to share our knowledge, not only science to mana whenua to science has been a huge one, particularly for our team at Scion. And family of everyone has been asking about what is the mahi that you're doing, and there's been a lot of curiosity about it. So all of the knowledge is actually being expanded out into the communities. The experiences of the team have been able to be shared with whānau and with also with communities on the East Coast and elsewhere. We've also been able to have an exchange with some Aboriginal communities from Australia, from Butchulla and from Coffs Harbour area, and we've been talking about the cultural implications of losing some of these species on the ground, and that was pretty special. And Pope is talking about his whānau, one of his whānau members, I think it was an uncle, and they're talking about what stories there are for different types of diseases in the forest, and that his uncle did not have a story for Coaty dieback, but there's definitely a lot of knowledge there that we can use for tackling things like myrtle rust in programs such as this. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Daryl now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heidi. Kia ora koutou, ko Daryl Heron tōku ingoa. I'm really looking forward to sharing those videos with you with the sound. Heidi did a fantastic job of really summarizing all of the stories, the kōrero there. It's been really, really inspirational to watch those videos. They've been recently produced and we just shared it with the team this morning. And we're really excited to see what you think of those and our stories. Here we've included, I'll just close up this webinar just with a summary. Here, we just wanted to share one of the outputs that we've recently done, and this is a trial we've begun, a screening trial to look for tolerance within the middle population. So we've got some Rama and we'll be doing this with Rotoiti as well, and then on a larger scale too. And we're really excited to see the results coming out of that trial. Our next steps in terms of this project, we've only got 10 months left. So our story's not done. Our story will still continue. There's a lot more training to do with our manukura and hōmiromiro. As one of the outputs of this project is improving the employability of the people within the project. We're really keen to make sure that the team are really upskilled and attractive to future employees. We'll obviously be continuing our mapping exercises to look at myrtles across the Bay of Plenty. We're almost at the end, or halfway through the Myrtle Rust season. We'll be continuing the Myrtle Rust monitoring and then comparing that with previous season's data to look at the impact of Myrtle Rust around the Lakes District. We'll have the second breeding trial come online in winter. It'll be planted up, and some of the results from there will help us select material for our conservation block and potentially a seed orchard as well. And these could become really important refugia if ever we see those localized extinctions. This could be an option to reintroduce material back into the Ngāhere. All of our mahi needs to be gathered and put together, and we're doing like these videos, lots of really easy to understand outputs that can be watched, read, shared with communities, so that anybody wanting to pick up this kind of work will be able to do it once the project comes to an end. And obviously we're looking beyond. We're always future and forward thinking, so we'll be continuing to look for opportunities for employment for our Te Rātā, looking for future research opportunities with the Myrtle Rust. It's not going anywhere, and a lot of this research that we're doing, we hope will come up with better strategies, more effective strategies to manage Myrtle Rust. And really, in conclusion, I hope we showed you today, and when you watch those videos as well, the benefits of government, CRI, Māori partnerships. We all have something we can leverage from one another. Government's got its directives, mandates, and funding to help with these CRIs, the scientific expertise, and even a space to create some training opportunities. And Māori as kaitiaki, as knowledge holders for a lot of these spaces for people in place, it becomes a really, really good model to do these kind of projects, especially in vulnerable areas. And we know that this is just a 3-year project, but certainly this kind of model can work for longer term biosecurity challenges, as well as for creating employment opportunities as well. And already what we've seen within this project is that without, or in the absence at least of a national monitoring or management program, these kind of projects really do allow us to provide a more targeted a way of managing diseases, especially in vulnerable areas. The experiences that the team have had, the learning opportunities is growing that biosecurity team of 4.7 million. And certainly the resources we have is helping basically arm communities with knowledge and learnings and data to help manage diseases in their own whenua. So thank you very much for tuning in, and apologies again that we couldn't get those videos shared with you, but when they are available, we will share them with you. Ngā mihi. On behalf of the team, thank you very much.
Thank you, Daryl, and thank you, Heidi. We have a couple of questions that have come in during the presentation. If one of you wants to field these, and for the audience, if you want to pop additional questions up in the questions section, that would be great. So Heidi, you mentioned seed collection and some species are functionally extinct. Can you please clarify what seeds you are aiming for and what species are functionally extinct?
Okay, so we were aiming for Lophomitis bullata and Lophomitis obcordata, which is Ramarama and Rotoiti. And we went originally to collect seed, and we found very little. Maybe 1 or 2 actually. So that meant, Jeff Pegg always talks about when is a species functionally extinct, it's when it can't actually replicate itself through seed. So if there's no seed, there's no future generations. So that's what I meant by that. And so we're focusing on those species. And so we moved to some cuttings technology. And so we have taken cuttings of known mother plants, and that's in our breeding trial now. And so we had to figure that out as well. And that's a really hats off to the team for doing that. It was a really not a simple mahi, but the record keeping and the result is quite fantastic.
Great. And were you able to capture any data on kanuka and manuka, even though those weren't focal species? Did you find infections of those in the field?
We haven't found infections on kanuka or manuka, but we're not intentionally monitoring those species in this project. It's probably about all I can say.
Okay. I have a couple more questions that have come through. Just a compliment here. Awesome to see working with mana whenua and to see the model of them being employed in their trust. So great feedback there. How do you identify material for conservation? Which traits are you looking for?
Yeah, so we're not really looking for traits. We're just realizing that the populations are in danger, actually, and so we're just taking copies of what we know are in the ngahiri, and we have some, there are some kind of basic tree breeding principles along how to maximize the diversity when you're doing collections, and so we adopted some of that, adapted it to the number of trees we had and did it that way. So try not to take seed from one tree that's exactly next to the next tree, have some gaps, and try and collect a representation of what's actually there. And for these species, they're not huge numbers, so that wasn't too hard to do. I hope that was a good answer.
Yeah. And then what is being planned or is underway for the use of surveillance and monitoring data?
Oh, yes.
So what is it going to be used for?
Well, actually, Daryl's going to have a serious look at that in the next few months, and we hope to really understand the trends of what's been happening over the last 2 seasons, because we've only really just hit the 2nd season, of course, for such a short project for these types of mahi. So we hope to show how serious this is, and that there's been decline. We don't hope that there's been decline, but we know there has been. So having some actual numbers around those things is actually really, really important to show evidence for funding bodies, to even MPI, to maybe get some extra help in that. So it's really a tool for evidence-based arguments to get additional work on this myrtle rust issue. Is anything you want to comment on, Daryl, there?
No, I think you've answered it. I think you've answered it pretty well, Heidi. And also having that data there as well. Hopefully, if anybody is wanting to continue that monitoring, they can use that data. We can track the disease in the area, understand how it's spreading. We also plan to look at some weather data as well. We've had 2 variable seasons in terms of conditions, so we have some information there about how that plays on myrtle rust's severity in the ngahiri as well.
Great. I have one more question for you before we sign off. I feel like you could probably write a publication based on this question, so maybe just a little tidbit there. What lessons of working with mana whenua came from the project? A possible template for other biosecurity kaupapa?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. First of all, because it's really hard to fit science into a Jobs for Nature project, and that's the truth of it. So we ended up having contracting arrangement with Rotoiti 15 in order to do that. But actually that turned out to be a really good thing, because the team works for Rotoiti 15 and we work in partnership, and it means that and when you look at the video, see what Otaki said, they have their own culture, and we actually just work with them, and it's not put into a CRI culture. And I think actually that is one of the things that I think works the best. And also it's been just such a lot of fun getting to know all the folks. I've really, really enjoyed it, and found some lifelong friends. They probably don't know that yet.
I bet they do. Great. Well, thank you so much today, Heidi and Daryl. What a great project. I think that's it for today. A video of today's webinar will be made available on the Beyond Myrtle Rust website in the next couple of days. It will also be emailed to everyone who registered, and I will also include in that email a link to a YouTube video that people can view with the sound fully on, although Heidi, you did a fantastic job narrating. Thank you so much. Our next webinar will be on March 13th at 11 a.m. And we will hear from Becky Ganley, Science Leader for Narako Takitaki. Keep a lookout for that webinar invite next month. And thank you, everyone. Harera. See you next time.